Sometimes a full gloss finish may not be desired. For the interior of a yacht, for example, you might want a more subtle satin sheen to your woodwork. Epifanes Rub Defect Varnish is a product designed specifically for this application, and in this video we're going to take a look at how to apply it. So this is a satin finish marine varnish that dries to give a subtle, non-glossy look to your wood. This is suitable for internal use only, as it doesn't have the same UV filtration as other Epifanes varnishes do. Its hybrid urethane alkyd nature delivers a single part varnish that is very hard wearing and is resistant to most mild household cleaners, making this a great choice for your galley. If you're looking to get a satin finish on exterior woodwork, then Wood Finish Matte is the varnish that you'll want to use there instead. Take a look at some of my other quick guide videos for a tutorial on that product. So the Rub Defect varnish is designed to be a final finish over an existing varnish base, meaning that the initial stages of application should be done with another product. The Rub Defect varnish is compatible with and can be applied over almost every other existing varnish system. From the Epifanes range, the Clear Gloss Varnish, PP Varnish Extra or Rapid Clear Varnish are all products that are suitable for building a base coating over which to apply your final Rub Defect coats. For bare wood applications, use one of these other products to get your wood grain filled, your surface flat and a good layer of UV protection built. To get yourself up to this stage, take a look at some of my other quick guide videos for tutorials on applying any of these products. Only the final 1 to 2 coats of your varnish system should be done with the Rub Defect varnish to give you your desired finish. So let's take a look at how to apply it. With your existing varnish system built up to a minimum of 6 coats, sand your existing varnish base to a nice flat surface. This should be sanded to a grade of 320 to 400 grit and can be wet sanded if you would like to achieve a really smooth, even base. Once you've sanded the surface, dry it and wipe it clean if you've wet sanded, vacuum off any remaining dust and degrease the surface with the Epifanes spray thinner, denatured alcohol or methylated spirits. As we are in the final coat application stages now, thinning is not really necessary, but it can be done by anything from 0 to 5% at this stage if you wish, using the Epifanes brush thinner. Thinning will allow you a little more working time with the varnish and increase the flow out slightly. If you are new to the process, then this will probably help you out a little. If you are applying over an already well-established varnish base, then a lightly thinned first coat will aid in creating a bond to the existing system. Thinning will differ slightly for spray application, which we will look at in a bit. Whether you have thinned the varnish or not, decant an amount of varnish into a mixing cup, as it's good practice never to work directly out of the tin. Stir the varnish thoroughly before decanting it. A flat wooden mixing stick is recommended for this and not a screwdriver. You should do this with any varnish product, but be particularly mindful of this when using the Rub Defect varnish. Separation of the matting agent in the tin could affect your final finish, and so you want to make sure that the product is well blended before commencing application. Once stirred and decanted, apply the first coat with a brush. Brush in opposing directions to ensure an even film coverage and then finish up with a tipping pass in the direction of the wood grain. A good quality brush is highly recommended here, and you'll find that a foam brush works very nicely for this particular product. Now with some varnishes such as the Rub Defect varnish, you're going to want to be quite conscious of your wet edges. And what is wet edge? Basically that is any exposed edge of the varnish. So we've just varnished this section here. This edge down here is a wet edge, and these edges around the outside of my board are wet edges. Now, we don't need to worry about these ones around the outside too much because they're on a finish line, so this might be up against a section that you've masked, or it might be into a window or a feature in the boat. It's an edge that's already finished, so you don't have to worry about it. This edge down here is the one that you want to focus on more if you want to get a nice even coverage of the varnish without lines appearing in your finish. The way that we control those is to feather out these sections as we work through the area of our part. So this section here I've done, and I've finished up this section with a tipping pass where I start just slightly into the dry section and then I come through into the wet, and I finish with strokes in that direction. Now as I apply the second segment of my part. You can see I'm brushing my varnish in. Working that out nice and evenly. And then I'm finishing up with my tipping pass. So at the moment I've got a wet edge along here, which has been going for quite some time. And I've got a fresh wet edge along here and up here. Also our perimeters, but we don't have to worry too much about those. So now that I've done this section, what I want to do is to avoid having a finish line here where the first wet edge has been covered over. So I'm going to tip this out from the dry section through into the wet, and I'm just going to lift it as I feather through into that first section. What I've done now is I've covered the wet edge that's underneath here as I've blended it in, and I've brought it along so it's now along here. This edge here is our oldest wet edge at the moment, so we need to get that covered, and basically you don't want to leave any exposed wet edge in the middle of your part exposed for too long. So you want to keep moving through the part in such a way that you're going to constantly cover that and then move on to the next section. What I'll do, just to show you how it has an effect, is I'll do a section down this side. And I'll purposefully leave these edges for quite a long time, and we'll come back to that and we'll see the effect that it has if you leave a wet edge exposed for too long a period. So I'm going to carry on covering this section in. So now you can see that I've filled this section in here. The first wet edge that we had running down there is no longer a problem. We've now covered that in and blended fresh varnish into it. So we've effectively signed off that section there. We don't need to worry about it anymore. Our wet edge is now down here. So we want to continue moving through the part in such a way that we keep evolving that wet edge. What we don't want to do is work all the way around the part and then come back to a seam, an edge that's been left in the middle of the piece for quite some time. That's how you're going to end up with lines in your finish where various sections meet, and that's going to be particularly evident in a varnish such as the rubbed effect. Okay, so I've left it a little while before revisiting this edge. You can see that this feathered section here is just starting to, thinners are starting to flash off of that. But this edge is quite a hard edge here, and this is one that I've purposely left an exposed wet edge on. So when it comes to varnishing that, what you'll find is that the varnish is going to want to drag a little bit in that area because we've got an edge that we've left exposed for quite some time, and we're probably going to end up with a hard line in our finish because of that. Okay, so you can see that hard line that we've got in our finish there, where I left that exposed edge and area for just a little bit too long. You can see it across the bottom there as well. So that's an example of where leaving wet edges or not really focusing on keeping them moving through the part is going to have an effect on your finish, particularly with varnishes such as the rubbed effect. So if you're seeing lines and ridges and things like that appearing in your finish, then that's probably quite a good indication that you're not quite managing the wet edges of your varnish as you work through sections particularly well. If you're applying 2 top coats, allow the first coat to fully dry. Drying times for this product are going to be around 12 hours at 20 degrees C or 68 F, but that will increase to 24 hours if you are down at 10 degrees C or 50 F. Once dry, lightly sand the first coat with 320 to 400 grit paper as before. Vacuum off any remaining dust, degrease the surface again, and you are then ready to proceed with coat number 2. Apply coat 2 in the same way. Using a brush, work out the varnish quickly and efficiently to apply an even film thickness. Application of the rubbed effect varnish can also be done with spray. A gravity-fed HVLP gun is recommended for application. Thin the varnish at 15 to 20% using the Epifanes single part spray thinner. Use a 1.2 to 1.5mm nozzle, set your pressure at 2 to 3 bar or 29 to 43 psi, and if you're using a ding cup to check the viscosity, this should measure a time of around 20 to 24 seconds with a 4mm ding cup. If you are applying 2 top coats, the process is still the same here. Allow coat 1 to dry, sand it lightly and then proceed with the second coat. Wet on wet application is not advised for this product. Initially the varnish will look like a typical gloss coat, but as it begins to dry, the lovely subtle sheen of this product will come through. So with the rubbed effect varnish, you can apply over an existing varnish system or build the base with one of the other Epifanes products. Then apply 1 to 2 top coats for a lovely warm satin finish, perfect for your yacht's interior. In order to avoid marking in the final finish, remember to keep control of your wet edges and keep your working area evolving throughout your part constantly. If you want some more tips and in-depth learning for these sorts of elements of varnish application, then take a look at my online course, which is linked in the description below this video. If you've got any questions, then pop them in the comments below, and I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I will catch you in the next one. Cheers guys.